Good afternoon. Welcome to the John Gaunt podcast. So here's the question. Should Starmer sack the top cop in Birmingham in the West Midlands, my patch? Did he mislead? Did he lie? Is this two-tier policing? I want your views. Craig Rutherford is his name. They're saying he's too arrogant to resign. So it's going to have to come down to Shabana, Mahmood, who's the Home Secretary, and Starmer. Stacker, do you think it'll sack him? Do you think it'll actually happen? Let's get your opinion and let's get it now. There's loads to talk about this afternoon. This is an extra show. We will be doing one later as well about Donald Trump and the tanker and also Keir Starmer. But for now, let's stay on this because we're exposing or reiterating a scandal so rotten that it stinks of cowardice, cover-up, and, of course, two-tier policing. And it sums up everything that is wrong in this country. I wrote about this and I spoke about this on a podcast when it happened. It's all about the Villa game against Tel Aviv Maccabi. Do you remember they said, these lot are a bunch of louts, they'll come here, they'll cause trouble. Aston now, it wasn't actually said like this, but Aston, where the ground is, Aston Villa, has got a large Muslim population. They're scared that these Israelis will come in and cause riots. It was all utter bullshit. I said at the time, I thought it was bullshit. And I thought you should never, ever stop opposition fans coming. That's your job, Chief Constable, to police it. As it happens, of course, it was the Safety Advisory Group, which is partly the council and partly the top cops. But yesterday, in front of a Commons committee, and I've been in one in front of those, they're pretty hairy, let me tell you, him and his three other top coppers all came over as bungling twats, and that's me being nice. Some would say they all came over as corrupt. Some would say it smelt of a cover-up because the Chief Constable, Rutherford, he admitted in those proceedings that police intelligence was effectively shaped to justify the banning of the Israeli football fans, whereas the real threat had come from Brummies. Well, Islamist Brummies, not all Muslims, of course, but Islamist extremists. They threatened to kill Jews. Let me say it again so you understand, because it is quite a complicated story, although I knew at the time this was bullshit. But the politicians pretend, oh no, everyone's lovely, everyone wants to mix. Diversity is our strength, don't they? However, the danger was from extremists. But the punishment, of course, was aimed at the Jews. It was Jews who were not allowed to go and support their team. As it happens, they had 7,000 people still on duty, the police, on that night, and I don't think there was any real trouble. But that's because there was no opposition fans there. As I understand it, there was a meeting of this safety advisory group at which they talked about it, and then after the meeting, some of the local councillors and some of the Muslim MPs said there's a worry, there's a concern that members of the community are armed and are going to target the Israelis - Jews if they come. So at that point, the accusation is that Rutherford, and he didn't do much to defend himself yesterday, that Rutherford and his other three muppets in charge, how shall we say, bent, changed the evidence so that it was the Maccabi fans who were the problem. They said they'd had intelligence from Amsterdam, from the Dutch police. It came out yesterday that intelligence came well before the decision and the meeting. It didn't come later. And now the Dutch are saying, well, we didn't say that. That's what the Dutch coppers are saying. No, we didn't say they'd cause trouble. But Craig Rutherford the bungling cop, him behind me in this picture, he's still got his job and he's not going to resign. I'll tell you something about this man. He resigned a few months ago just to make sure his pension was protected. It was some technical issue. So he resigned for a couple of months and then came straight back to the job. He never stopped doing the job because he's worried about his pension. And I've represented coppers, as you know. And one of the worst things about the police is if they are guilty of something, they resign before it actually gets to any kind of court action. Why? Because then they don't lose their massive pension. I'm not saying they don't deserve a good pension. My dad was a copper, and it was good that he got a pension because he never got paid properly when he was policing the streets of Coventry. But this idea there's a chance you could lose your job, and therefore if you lost your job, you lose the pension, that's got to stop. And it's not got to just stop for people like my dad, ordinary constables. It's got to stop for the chief constable. So I know exactly what game he's up to. So now Kemi Badenoch, God bless her soul, and she was brilliant today in Prime Minister's Questions, she's now calling for his sacking. But that can only come via the Home Secretary, who is a Muslim as well, but I'm sure she won't let that influence her, Shabana Mahmood. But Keir Starmer needs to give her a kick up the arse and tell her, don't protect the indefensible. Because I'm telling you now, if lying to support Jewish-hating policies isn't a sackable offence, then policing in this country has lost all moral authority. I'd also say the government has. But this is all because of what Keir has created. Two-tier Keir. We've got two-tier justice. Look what happened after Southport. Look what happened there. People sent to prison for hurty words. I'm going to tell you now and say it, and I'm going to say it out openly, because the establishment won't. There's a few people putting their heads over the parapet, but we've got to sack Rutherford. And we've got to sack his 3 Muppets with him. But I'll tell you something else which is much more important now, in a way, after sacking them. Keir Starmer has got to admit there has been two-tier policing in this country and that it will stop now. But we're living in a whole two-tier system. And that's why I wanted to do this now, because as I began to put this together to do the show later tonight, it broke about the tanker story, which is still developing, about what Donald Trump is doing. And so I want to come back to that later. But I didn't want to lose this story, because that's the danger with news, that you lose one of the big stories. And in my opinion, the story of this two-tier policing in Birmingham must not be allowed to disappear. It's so important. So if you're angry about it, like I am, please put a comment in the comments. If you're an ex-cop or even a copper now, I'd love to hear from you. Do you believe we've got two-tier policing in this country? Do you believe that let's call it what we call it, the Muslim community gets treated with kid gloves? This isn't an invitation for people to be racist, quite the opposite. But we have to be able to discuss it, don't we? Just remember what I said. The Muslim community, or the Islamist part of that community, were armed and dangerous. I don't know if that's with pickaxe handles. I don't know whether that's with weapons, guns. But the police were scared that they would kick it off. But what they actually said, I remember it being on telly, and I laughed my socks off. They actually said it would be the fans from Tel Aviv who would kick it off. And therefore, the solution that SAG, this committee, came up with was to ban the opposition. Fans, the Jews. Was this not clear anti-Semitic hate wound up by the local MPs and the local councils? I remember them being on the telly and on the radio saying, oh, what a threat it is to community cohesion and the rest of it. The copper, Rutherford, knew that that was not the truth, that the truth was the threat from the Islamists within the Muslim community, not the Israeli fans, who are a bit feisty, it's got to be said. But hasn't he dealt with that before? I said that at the time. Has he not had the Millwall at Birmingham, and of course he has. Has there not been trouble in Birmingham before? Yes. This was all about anti-Jewish sentiment, and that Jews and the safety of Jews is well down the list compared to the safety of particularly Muslims. So I say again, the danger was from the Islamist extremists, but the punishment was absolutely aimed at the Jews. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a society like that. Do you? And I say that this scandal blows apart the myth of policing without fear or favour, which of course coppers are meant to do. I think what it also says is that the establishment is frit, as Mrs. Thatcher would say. I would say scared shitless of Muslims. And they probably group them all together, which is racist and wrong. Because most people just want to get on with their lives, get their kids into school, etc., run their business, go to work. But the Islamist extremists have now got the upper hand. We know this is the case. Whenever there's a terrorist attack, it takes forever for them to tell us if it's a Muslim. But we know straight away if it's a white person. Do you remember what happened in Liverpool compared to what happened in Southport? Oh, as it turns out, at that point, he even wasn't a Muslim, but then he became one in prison. This has got to stop. Especially when you put, and I know you're going to say, oh, here he goes again, but when you put it into the context of all the people who are arriving in our country illegally, of fighting age, young men who we don't know who they are, and it's not as if we haven't had some serious crimes committed by these people, including terrorism. That doesn't mean they're all like it, but that's a worry. And so when we have sworn evidence by West Midlands Chief Constable Craig Rutherford admitting that police intelligence was massaged, shaped to fit a decision that had already been taken, which was to ban Tel Aviv football fans, Jewish people, from Villa Park, you've got to ask the question, why? I'll tell you why. Because the truth was inconvenient. Because the real and serious threat it emerged yesterday came not from the Jews or the Israeli supporters, but from the Islamist extremists in Birmingham. Some armed and openly threatening violence against any Jews attending the match. This is Britain in 2026. No, just let that sink in. So instead of confronting the real danger, police chiefs, Rutherford and his mob, pointed the finger at the victims, dressed it up as risk management, and expected nobody to notice. Now, if that isn't two-tier policing in black and white, I don't know what is. They lied to justify a ban. They downplayed Islamist threats. They sacrificed Jewish fans to avoid community tensions. And now the spotlight is having to turn to politics because Kemi, Badenoch, has called for Rutherford's sacking. If he had any spine, any morals, he would resign himself. Keir Starmer, well, he's sitting on his hands. He can't even make up his mind whether what Donald Trump did the other day was okay or not. And then Shabana Mahmood, well, she's responsible for policing oversight as the Home Secretary. Why hasn't she spoken? Because if a chief constable can admit misleading evidence in open proceedings, on the telly even, I was watching it live yesterday, and still keep his job, then the system is corrupt and rotten from the top to the bottom. So this show would call it out for what it is, but I want your contributions. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's a cover-up. And I think it's a test of whether Britain still believes in equal justice under the law. No fucking apologies from me. No censorship. No establishment protection racket. I say sack the cop and his three mates, or you have to admit two-tier policing is real and that this country is lost. This country is doomed. It is over. They have won. And when I say they have won, I mean the cultural Marxists who have enabled this to happen. for thousands of people to come in our country, some of them very dangerous, and not explained that you fit in or you ship out. We've got a prime minister who's just let somebody in who openly admits he hates Jews. He hates Jews. That he thinks white people are pigs and dogs and apes and all the rest of that usual stuff. We had a synagogue in Manchester where innocent people got killed when they were worshipping. But of course, it suddenly turns into, oh, but there's been attacks on mosques as well. Oh, give them another 10 million. I think the British people are getting fed up with this. Am I right or am I the problem? Am I the extremist? Because that's the other thing they've done. People like Rutherford have made it so that you're scared stiff of actually criticising that particular community. And like I'm saying at the moment, it's obviously not the majority of that community, but there are Islamists within it who hate our very way of life. Are you with me or against me? We've got 12 likes. If you're liking what I'm saying, press the like button. If you want to donate, you know what to do. Just press the $sign and send me a few quid to keep these podcasts going before they arrest me. Or you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. My name's John Gaunt, and this is probably the most aggressive, honest podcast anywhere on the internet, certainly in this country. Why don't you join in? Let's go. Hula hoops. Jew-hating police in Birmingham, Stan? Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, hula hooper, but that was quite funny. Thank you very much indeed. Eric Candle on Facebook says he needs to walk. No, Eric, you're missing a point. He can't walk. He's too arrogant to walk. He still doesn't think he's done anything wrong. It's all about community relations. He's going to have to be sacked. And that should have happened overnight. The moment Starmer was shown the recording of his evidence, bang, gone. But Starmer has got the backbone, we've said this so many times, of a blancmange. So now it's down to the public to tell him he's got to go. We've all been saying there's two-tier policing for years. Well, it's clear. In this case, that's what happened. Muslims, good guys. Jewish, animals, thugs, hooligans. How much more of this are we going to take? And I also say there's 5 Muslim independent MPs who backed this disgraceful position. They should be considering their jobs as well. Eric Handel goes on to say, he needs to be sacked. He's a liar. Well, that's what I'm saying, mate. But you just said he needs to walk. He can't walk. He can't walk. John Starmer should sack him, but I don't think he will, says Craig Mawson. Craig, I'm with you as well. Leanne Teal, 725 regular. She says, welcome to two-tier, not so great Britain. Well, that's why I'm doing this extra podcast now this afternoon, because obviously I want to talk about the big news about this oil tanker, which we will do at 6:00, and what Trump's up to. But at least we've got one leader in the world who's got a backbone, because it's clear what he's saying. This thing about the tanker, this is about China and Russia and the threat from them. And he's saying, I ain't having it anymore. And he's putting his foot down. But look what we've got. The lettuce, who we could have had instead of Liz Truss, would do a better job than Starmer. I don't know if you saw Prime Minister's questions today. Again, he didn't answer any questions. But the slimy smartass, he started Prime Minister's questions by slagging off reform. He said, a bit belated, but may I wish you all a happy new year. And of course it is New Year, exactly, for reform, because they're in bed with the Russians, effectively, because it's the Russian New Year. I thought it was disgraceful. And then later in the exchange between him and Kemi, he even got a rollicking off the Speaker of the House, who, of course, is a Labour MP, Lindsay Hoyle. Starmer is so arrogant. He's going to take this country into the dustbin. And in my show later, I'm going to be talking about the way he's reacted to Trump and what Trump's doing. And also there's this new thing out. He is now officially the most unpopular PM ever. He's got to go before he wrecks the country completely. Are you with me or against me? They will all get knighthoods as a punishment, says Ben Essex, 1325. Well, yeah, he was probably on the way to getting one. Most chief constables, when they retire, do get one, just for doing their job. I've never really understood that. But I told you, he resigned and then he came back to protect his pension. And that's why now he'll be trying to get out or do a deal so that he doesn't lose it now, because his pension will be hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. He's useless. Payment for failure. Do you agree with me or not? Welcome to the show. It is the John Gaunt podcast. I'm normally here at 6 o'clock Monday to Thursday. I'd normally do a show on a Sunday afternoon as well. But if you want to keep track of what I'm doing, you must join John Gaunt YouTube, John Gaunt TV on YouTube. Easy to find. When you do find it, a little pop-up comes up and says, do you want to subscribe? Don't worry. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. It just means join. And then what happens is when I do extra shows, you get a notification if you press the bell as well. But you also then get access to the whole archive of all the podcasts I've been making over the last year. And I must just say thank you to everyone. Got a little certificate today, 2.2 million views. Thank you very, very much indeed. We are going places. It's taking time, but we're going places. So thank you for that. Steve Mellor says he's just another overpaid yes man for Starmer and he's not fit for purpose. And he's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to incompetence in these jobs. Isn't that so, Starmer? You're right, Steve. And in a sense, that's what I was trying to say earlier, Steve Mellor. Thank you for your comments. The bottom line is this. Britain is now stuffed full in our higher echelons of these people. Education, schools, higher education, universities, the National Health Service. You don't get on unless you subscribe to the common purpose view of life, unless you are a cultural Marxist, unless you do not, unless you do buy the Guardian. I'm exaggerating now, but that's what it's like. And that's the problem. Over successive years since Blair, we've created a society when it's only people like this that get to the top. When tough, real tough coppers get the bullet. I mean, compare and contrast this idiot with somebody like Kevin Hurley, who I have in my program quite a few times, used to be in charge of the Notting Hill Carnival. I don't know about you. I want hard police. I don't want them to have their Open University doctorate of philosophy or community relations on the table. I want them to nick Badenoch. Is that such a wrong attitude? I want them to police the streets, not the tweets. I don't want them knocking on my door saying, Mr. Gaunt, did you really write this? I don't. Yes, I did. And what are you going to do about it? We have free speech in this country. I haven't defamed anyone. It's just madness what is going on. And at the top, we have got the most woke, incompetent, spineless, slimeball, corrupt, even I'd say, Prime Minister we've ever had. And it's wrecking this country. Are you with me or against me? I'm not going to be here long, so don't hang back with your comments. Let's have them now. They haven't failed. They have all failed and should be forced to resign. They're an embarrassment to the police force. Well, you're very naughty, Mark Bradshaw. Go and whip yourself, put the horsehair shirt on. It's not a police force anymore. It's a police service. I think that's another thing to say when the police went downhill. We want them to be a force. We want to be a little bit worried when they come into town. Whereas now we've got kids. They get out their mobile phones, don't they, to gather evidence on police brutality or racism. Don't get me wrong, where there is racists in the police, root them out. Don't give them their pensions. Get them sacked. Get them put in prison if what they're doing deserves it. But don't have this world where they create a whole culture that is not in tune with the British public. I've been saying this for so long. When did it suddenly become so wrong to be right? Right of centre politically, I'm talking about. Because now, if you're right of centre, and I'm proud to be right of centre, you're then suddenly called far right by idiots like Rutherford. Look at him, the smug bastard. The question is, why did he lie? Says Eric Kendall. And we need to talk about the elephant in the room, and it's the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, but it's a little bit of a cliche, isn't it, Eric, just to blame one group. I know what you're saying. I'll tell you, but it's worse than that. They are frit. They are scared. That is why they pussyfoot around. Look, during the Birmingham riots, I think it was him or one of his... Actually, I think it was him who basically said, we've had a chat with the community. They kicked off somewhere in Birmingham. It was on the telly, this. And he said, we decided not to go in too heavy-handed because the community leaders, they said they could handle the situation. So we've left it up to the community leaders to deal with it. Here's a question for you then. In those areas where it's predominantly Muslim, are these community leaders elected? Like we do in other areas with councillors or, the church, they've got the Archbishop of Canterbury when it comes down all there. No, they're not. They just basically say they're the community leaders, and idiots like him then treat them as if they're gods. It's a farce. It's wrong. No other community. You don't see the Sikhs or the Buddhists or the Jews even wanting this kind of treatment. We go and talk to the community. Doesn't happen. The Jewish community, you'd have thought after Manchester, the synagogue, that they would have been looked after. They've just been forgotten about again. Why? Well, because the Jews don't shout things like Allah Akbar, do they? They don't do it. And I'm not saying all Muslims do, because they don't, but some Islamists do. They're petrified. It used to be, is it because I is black, as Ali G said, right? As the cliche. Now it's everyone. And it was terrible before, in the 70s, when, it couldn't be white people being in the wrong, could it? And there was terrible racism within the police, as there was within the whole of society. And that needed to be rooted out. I agree with all of that. I just want everybody to be treated fair. And in a fair and equitable manner. But that isn't happening in two-tier Keir Britain, is it? Sack all three, well, it's four actually, Carol, but thank you, and arrest the Muslim MPs for instigating violence and hate crime. I think, excuse me, Carol, I think you make a very good point. I don't know about arresting, but they've certainly got to be investigated. The next people I want to see in that room, what I call the Skippy Court, right? When I was there, do you remember that when I was there with, what's his name? The disgraced washing machine man, Keith Vaz. Keith Vaz. What's that, Skippy? That'll mean nothing to you when you just started watching me or listening. But I used to do a whole load of thing about him. He tried to put me on some sort of moral plane because I used to get paid by the Police Federation, the union, for looking after their rights and their responsibilities. And I'm still proud of the work I did. Didn't look after idiots like this guy. But I say now, up before that Commons Affairs Select Committee, whichever committee it is, I can't remember, you've got to have the 5 MPs and ask them, what on earth were you doing saying this was going on? And that the community were threatened by Jews. And Craig Rutherford and the other 3 Muppets, why did you lie about the information from Amsterdam? You know it was a lie. Sack him. Eric Handel says 100%. Lena says, you know as I do, John, no one is going to get the sack. FFS. Well, I think if nobody does get the sack for this particular incident, I will be amazed because Starmer always saves his own skin. Surely he can't be that stupid. Hang on a minute. Maybe he could be. That he won't act on it. Maybe he's hoping that the tanker, because, we could be on the verge of armed conflict with Russia. Oh, talking of which, we'll talk about this later as well. Who the hell does Starmer think he is? He's going to say, he pledged yesterday to send your daughters, your sons, your brothers, your sisters to die in Ukraine. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but to go there and fight. I don't know anyone who wants to fight for bloody Ukraine. But that's what he's pledged. And then today in the Commons, Kemi Badenoch had him because he should have come to the Commons and asked for permission. And he's not. He said, we haven't decided for sure. I've just made your pledge. It's unbelievable. He's playing with our children's lives. Kemi was if you haven't seen Prime Minister's questions today, have a look at it. We're going to talk about this later when we talk about the oil tanker. But maybe, Lena, he's hoping that whatever's happening on the global scale will take away attention from this. These are frightening times. Don't forget, I'm back again at 6 o'clock live tonight talking about the tanker. Well, I'm just going to have an open line. I'm just going to say, come on then, tell me what you think about the world at the moment. All this goes to show is that Islam is running the country and it'll only get worse, says Denise. Well, Denise, and I think that's the worry, that everyone immediately goes, it's all Islam. It's not all Islam. It's the Islamists within that religion. It's not all of them. Let's keep the lid on this, right? I don't want to come over as a bleeding heart liberal because I'm not. But what I tell you, what I would do, you'll like this, Denise, I would stop all immigration now. Legal and illegal. Sorry. I'd do what Trump said. Certain countries, no, you're not coming. Not until we find out which ones of you are here already. And as for Dover, like I said yesterday in my podcast, Hungary have stopped it. Hungary only had 1,000 people in total trying to get into their country. Why? Because they deter, detain, and deport. We've got to do the same. All of those people living in those hotels, who we don't even know who they are, right? We only know who they are when they commit rape or the sexual assault. It's true, isn't it? That's the only time you know. And then even then, you're not told for weeks who they are. It's a man. It's 3 men. You're not even told of swarthy appearance or anything. If there were 3 fat, white, pasty blokes with a Coventry accent, you'd be told straight away. We know what's going on. So I would say all those hotels closed, all into secure camps. I'm sorry to tar you all with the same brush, but then again, you are illegal. You shouldn't have come to our country. You've broken in. You're an illegal. You're a criminal. Get behind that barbed wire and we'll process you. Oh, you haven't got a passport? Shit, you're in big trouble now then. We're going to have to send you somewhere abroad to be processed. You got a passport? Okay. Tell you what, we'll pay for you. We'll even pay for you to fly home. We've got to stop. We can't allow any more of the enemy into the country. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that will affect some decent people. And I'm sorry about that. But somebody's got to have the backbone to say it. No? If you do like what I'm saying, please press the like button. 22 now. That's good. I'm going to stop soon. Also, if you'd like to donate, and nobody has so far, so you obviously hate what I'm saying. If you'd like to donate, press the $ and donate whatever you fancy. Please do. £5, £10, £2, £3, whatever you fancy, whatever you can afford. And if you don't want to do it that way, and lots of you do this, go to www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. And then you get your name on the bottom there as well of the video. If you're listening on a podcast, don't forget you can watch it now on YouTube and on Facebook and sometimes on Twitter. Twitter's a bit useless, to be honest. But always on John Gaunt TV, you'll see it, and then you can watch it on repeat. Likewise, if you watch it on YouTube, you do know you can download now the podcasts. Well, you always could. So you can listen again while you're walking the dog or whatever you're doing. Stephen Hall, afternoon, John. Afternoon, it's an extra show. Annette Locke, good to have you on board, Annette. I believe it's totally morally corrupt and racist. They always get the upper hand. You talking about Islamists, or you talking about him, the Chief Constable? The police have lost so much respect now, says Stephen. They certainly have, Stephen. They are an absolute disgrace. He should be sacked along with the Islamist MPs who stirred the pot. Well, like I say, the Islamist MPs I probably agree with you, but I'll give them a chance to try and clear their reputation. Also, it'd be funny to see them being questioned, wouldn't it? The biggest thing is we've got to stop tiptoeing, and this is why the blasphemy law that they're trying to get in by the back door, Keir Starmer, is wrong. We got rid of the blasphemy law years ago. I don't see now why, for a religion, which, let's face it, is not native to this country, there's basically going to be an Islamic, hatred law or whatever it is. No, that's wrong. You should be able to say whatever you want about any religion. What's wrong with that? It's called free speech. Isn't that what our heroes died for? Let's move on. Lena says, we all know why they're bending over backwards to appease Muslims for fear of another bomb at a pop concert or on buses and trains getting blown up. We're governed by cowards. I can't disagree with that, Lena. I think they are cowards. You're right. Chickens, that's what they are. It's disgraceful. Fundamentalists on the safety group, John, who loathe Jews, says Malthus 13. You're right. Some of the people on that safety committee were the very people I'd be scared of. And some of the people on that safety committee, they went to certain mosques. Did you hear about this? They went to certain mosques to ask their views. Unfortunately, it's now been revealed that many of these mosques was where they had preachers of hate, preaching anti-Semitic rubbish. You literally, as Richard Littlejohn, my old mate, says, you couldn't make this up. They have sacrificed plenty to appease, young women being the biggest. Well said, Annette. That's a good point. They get away with that, and now nothing is sacrosanct and untouchable as they stand by and watch it go on. Thank you very much indeed. Forever English says, so you're covering tanker and wanker later. I'm certainly going to cover the tanker story. Who are you calling a wanker? Donald Trump? I don't think so, mate. He's the only one who's fighting to protect the West. Very rare if violent fans are in town for them to be banned. It's unheard of. Policed, not banned. Well said. Well said. I made this point at the time. If he was the Chief Constable for the West Midlands, that would cover Coventry, Walsall, the Black Country, Birmingham, right? Well, certainly on some Saturdays, there might be 5 or 6 games going on, which could be flashpoints. I made this point back in October or whenever this all blew up. It's just rubbish. Right from the beginning, the excuse was nonsense. Your job is to police. The clue is in the title. Police. Police. The office of Constable, to uphold the police without fear or prejudice. Do you remember any of that? You disgust me. Jim Garfield, it's clear WM police knew Jewish fans were at risk from local Islamist gangs. So instead, the police created false intelligence and altering information supplied by the Dutch police. Yeah, the Dutch police have said, hang on, we never said that. The Dutch police have pissed all over his parade. He's got to go. Now, just talking about ignoring, Jim, because you brought that up, it's like the rape gangs. Some police officers believed that the girls were prostitutes. They were selling themselves. That the girls were asking for it. It's unbelievable, isn't it? They couldn't because they didn't want to. And it's also come out, of course, some of the police were abusing and raping these girls as well with those largely Pakistani Muslim gangs. How have we created this situation? And it must be terrible for ordinary Muslims who are just going about their business to be tarred with this brush. I just had enough of it. I really have had enough of it. We all know there's two-tier policing. It's an open secret, despite their pathetic attempts to cover it up. It needs a clear out at the top, says Paul Robottom. You're right. Pat Burnside, I know you probably won't agree with me on this, John, but if I was in charge, I'd clear all practicing Muslims out of our country. This would solve so many of today's problems with this country overnight. I'm firmly behind Rupert Lowe on this issue. He's the best MP by far in the Commons. I don't think he said he wants to get rid of all Muslims, has he? If he has, he's wrong. When we were fighting the IRA, we didn't get rid of all Catholics. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that because then it becomes a sectarian fight. What we do want is when people come to the country is make sure they're going to be loyal to the flag and the country. And that means that white liberals like Craig, I would imagine Craig Rutherford's been very much against the flags going up. Oh, no, that's disgusting. Right? We need people like him to believe in our flag and believe in our boys and our country. But there's a whole class of people, Starmer included, who want to send your kids to Ukraine to die, but actually hate us. Stephen Hall says, I'm so glad to have caught this. Thank you. Don't forget, you can always watch it on replay afterwards. But some days, something gets me goat and I can't hang back. I've just had a blazing row with Lisa because I said, I've got to get this done. I can't go to the butcher's and then I want to do another one at 6. Right? So this is what I'm sacrificing for you, okay? And no one's donated. Come on, help me out. I need a bit of a donation. Click the $sign or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt and donate anything. There you go. Kevin O'Brien, or is it Cavan? Sorry. In the real world, failure is detrimental to one's bank balance. You're absolutely right, mate. But that's what I'm saying to you. He probably won't resign. And, you know, he's desperately trying not to get the sack, or he'll resign just before any public inquiry to keep his big fat pension. Don't get me wrong. Police deserve a good pension, but that's what happens. Thank you, Kevin, for your contribution. Alan Laurie, yes, they're happy to hide from grooming gangs. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, look, somebody's helped out. Michael Doolan, he sent a 99p or a quid super sticker. Every penny, every pound counts. Thank you, Michael. You're a true fan. Really appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. Common Purpose and the Fabian Society, says Stephen Hall. Yes, I've got to agree with you. Definitely care. Common Purpose. Slapping a bird's bottom. The only way out of this mess is to get David Lammy in as Prime Minister. Yes, all right. We all like a joke. Annette Locke. Have you seen new recruits? They look about 12. They're all brainwashed by liberal bullshit. Well, yes, Annette, I agree with you. Also, Annette, I told you about this. I tried to get a job at the Department for Work and Pensions, the Dole office to me and you. The woman behind the counter, in between drinking a milkshake and doing a nail, she said, "You'd be great. You'd be great, Gaunty." She knew me, you know. So I applied because it was quite good money and a bit of a pension and all that. I thought, well, I'll do that, and I could still do my podcast, do my bits and bobs. This was 2 years ago nearly, when I was really on my uppers. It took them 3 months to say no. Well, in fact, they never said no. I had to ring up. And they said, "Oh, yeah, you haven't got through the selection process." And the selection process went, oh, why is that then? And I went back to my lady, who was drinking a banana milkshake that day. I said, "I didn't get the job." She said, "Are you still doing your podcast?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "They're still about politics." Yeah. She said, "You should do what I do." I said, "What's that?" She said, "I do ones about cats." I said, "She what?" She said, "Yeah, it's non-controversial." So clearly, no, shut up, John. Don't make the obvious joke. Let's move on. Free Starmer's political prisoners now unjustly imprisoned. Well, not all of them, but I understand where you're coming from. Labour are still anti-Semitic. Dub Chile. MB, the silence from the mainstream media is deafening regarding the Islamic regime in Iran. That's a good point. There's not been any real coverage of it, particularly on the BBC. So the regime in Iran is collapsing due to the population rising up in unison to overpower the oppressors. It terrifies Starmer and co. It sure as hell does. That's a good point, Dub Chili. Thanks for making it. And thank you for not putting Starmer's picture on the screen today, says Forever English. We'll see what happens at the 6 o'clock show. Make sure you tune back in for that. It's proven Islamists threaten, intimidate MPs. Please, police, you only have to look at the grooming gangs, says Polo is correct. Can't argue with that. Stop spreading lies and fear-mongering. Those thugs were coming for trouble with the Muslim, not the other way around, says Maureen Parker. I trust you're saying that as a joke, Maureen. But anyway, if you're not, that's your opinion. You're wrong. The truth is they were afraid of rioting or a terrorist attack. The coppers and politicians would have to admit that we've got a serious terrorist problem. Yeah, along with sorry, terrorist is also the hardest word, isn't it, Elton John? Russia is just a diversion tactic from all in the UK. Thank you. Send all the middle-class Ukraine flag flyers first. Thank you. Right. I'm going to stop now. I'm just checking to see if there's anybody else who's desperate to get on. There's hundreds still to talk through. I love what you're saying. So many people daren't say it, says Jackie Ward. Jackie, I don't give a shit. I've lost everything. Don't matter, does it? What are they going to sue me for? I've got nothing. Only my computer. And you can't take away my computer and lights because I need that for my work. Carol Howard says, "Oh, Skippy and Keithy Vaz, they were the days." Thank you very much indeed. They covered up the grooming gangs as well, says Dave Toby 44444. Thank you. Slapping a bird's bottom. We don't do jokes like that. Leave them to me because I know what a double entendre is. Where are we going next? I'm a Christian. I have been all my life. I'm, however, a British Christian, which means I've got a sense of humour. I like David Allen, Father Ted, the Vicar of Dibley. Real faith can be mocked, says Michael Doolan. And he's the man who just donated £1. So thank you very much indeed. David KT says, just look at the shape of that Chief Constable's head. It says it all. Now, if you're listening on a podcast, you will now definitely have to come and have a look at it on YouTube. I'll put the picture of him behind me. Well, that was a good show. Off the cuff, so to speak. Keir. But I'll be back at 6-ish, do another show. Going to talk about, are we on the verge of World War III? Is Donald Trump the only man who's got the balls to stand up to the Russians and the Chinese and indeed the Islamists? Don't see that America's got this problem. Michael Doolan says he doesn't want to be involved in another war. Save that, Michael. Come back at 6. So thanks, because that was just a quick one. Thank you very much indeed. Well, a quick one. You got 45 minutes and I only got £1 in donations. I'm hardly going to get fat again on that, am I? But thank you very much. Don't forget, you can always send me a super sticker after the show ends. And don't forget, the show will be available straight away on replay. Don't forget to listen. And don't forget to join John Gaunt TV. Subscribe to it on YouTube. Thanks a lot. See you in a couple of hours. Is it a couple of hours? What time is it? I have to get a move on. Thank you very much indeed. Until we speak again, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, hey, hey. Don't forget to tell them you love them. See ya.